Amen.
Amen.
I've been trying to put some lines of truth together and some concepts in order to identify the characteristics of this symbol. And this symbol I'm calling the binding off. I'm identifying it as the third test of the three angels. In terms of the everlasting gospel, this is the litmus test, which demonstrates the character that you produced in the previous two tests. And in our last presentation, one of the things that I was touching on was that Lich's prediction in 1838, and then his second prediction 10 days before August 11th, 1840, that work of his is a symbol of methodology. And I'm not so sure there isn't a better word to describe this. His prediction is based upon him applying the rules of a prophetic interpretation that the Millerites used. And what I'm suggesting about Snow is that Snow in 1844 with the Midnight Cry message, he's representing the message of the third angel. And he's also marking where the Spirit's poured out. Now, at the first presentation, I touched just briefly on fractals. I showed you that the first angel's message is a fractal of the three angels' messages of Revelation 14, and the third angel's message came into history at the conclusion of the 2300-year prophecy. And the first prophecy in the 2300-year prophecy was 49 years, then the streets and walls would be built in troublous times. And we pointed out that that 49-year prophecy began on the third decree. So you had 3 decrees and then 49 years. And we showed you a fractal in that prophecy because the man that led out in rebuilding the streets and walls in troublous times was Nehemiah. And the testimony of Nehemiah is that it took him 52 days to do the work of building the streets and walls. But the first 3 of those 52 days, he spent checking out the city to see the work that he had to do. So you had 3 followed by 49 in the work that Nehemiah accomplished, but that was days, whereas that is the fulfillment of the first prophecy of the 2300 days, which is 49 years followed by these 3 decrees. So we identified that fractals are part and parcel of the 2300 days, and you needed to see that, and for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons that I wanted you to get a little bit familiar with fractals if you weren't is because I did want to address Revelation 11 as we did yesterday. Revelation 11, correct understanding, it's identifying the French Revolution time period, but all the prophets are speaking about the end of the world, so we bring it down to our time period, and we see that the 2 witnesses beginning in 9/11 are going to prophesy through the wilderness time period, which at the big level takes you to the Sunday law. And at the end of that period, when they are finishing their testimony, Sister White says in The Great Controversy, the beast from the bottomless pit is going to ascend and kill them. And how long are they going to lay in the street? 3.5 days, and that 3.5 days is the conclusion of what? 3.5 prophetic years, right? Isn't 3.5 prophetic years 42 months or 1,260 years so at one level? So you have at the end of that Revelation 11 history, you have a little fractal at the end. And I wanted to put that in there because we looked at the wildernesses. And the wildernesses in the scriptures, whether they're represented by the number 70 or the number 1260 or the number 40, you will find if you look closely that at the end of those wilderness time periods, there is always a little period that corresponds to this binding off. So when we get to the 1260 in Revelation 11, from 9/11 to the Sunday law, we see that just before the Sunday law, there is a binding off that is a fractal of this whole period of time because it's 3.5 days. But from that, what I wanted to make sure that we saw is this here as a symbol is the binding off period right before the Sunday law as represented in Revelation 11. So what does Revelation 11 contribute to this symbol? It contributes that the two witnesses, you and I, if we're faithful, are going to go through two types of persecution before we get to the Sunday law. In what's referenced in Great Controversy is first the papal persecution, followed by the persecution of atheistic France. But we now understand that the two-horned power at the end of the world that's going to accomplish this persecution just before the Sunday law is the United States, okay? But before the United States comes up out of the bottomless pit, a new manifestation of satanic power, and of course Sister White says that the Sunday law of the United States has fully disconnected itself from righteousness, okay? It's definitely now a complete and total tool in the hand of Satan, although it's already being guided by the papacy and Satan. At that point where these two witnesses are slain, it's a new manifestation of satanic power. It's according to Revelation 13:12 and onward, after the Sunday law arrives, it's going to go out to the whole world and deceive them force them into setting up a world image of the beast and accepting the mark of the beast, or people won't be able to buy or sell. So at the end of this history, whether it's at the big picture from 9/11 to the Sunday law, or a fractal from 9/11 to the midnight cry in our history, when we get to this binding off time period, what takes place? Persecution. Why? Because of the prediction. The prediction has brought us into focus. And what we're going to say is going to be so pointed that it's been typified by Ahab and Elijah. And Elijah looking Ahab in the eye and say, I'm not the troubler here, you are. Okay, so there's in this binding off period, some of the things, the lines that we're recognizing that contribute to this is that there is going to be persecution that takes place in this history. I guess I'll just put it down here. Persecution. For me, it's better if I don't think about spelling. As soon as I start thinking to myself, am I spelling this right? I really start questioning myself. Is that right? Okay. Now, I'm suggesting that in this history, one of the witnesses, that these two witnesses in this history that are lying in the street, dead, that this history is identifying that the faithful are dead, but they're not dead. It's figuratively, something happens that to them that is represented by death. Okay. What else did we cover yesterday? Well, we're putting this in place. That's Revelation 11. We're putting this in place because I'm understanding, some of us are understanding it, and I think it's defendable, it's accurate. This is the third angel, and we read this morning that it's the angels that do the work of separation, but when Sister Wright really focuses it in, it's the third angel that numbers God's people, binds them, both the wicked and the righteous, and seals them. Okay, so the priests in their binding off period, just right at the midnight cry, they're being sealed. Okay, even though we know the seal isn't put in place until the Sunday law. The righteous and the wicked both are bound here, and this is where the final number is put in place for the priests. So this is the raising up of the priests. The priesthood of Adventism was passed by at 9/11. Why was it passed by? We went through this yesterday. Because they rejected the message of Daniel 11:40-45. The increase of knowledge, my people are destroyed from a lack of knowledge, and because they have rejected knowledge, thou will be no more priest unto me. And he would destroy their children. The symbol of this history is the number 4, but I'm calling it the third angel's message, but the number 4 is here. This history, among other things, is the history of 1449, July 27th, 1449, if you want to get technical, on through 1453. And in that history from 1449 to 1453, right here in the prophecy of Revelation 9, on July 27th, 1449, what prophecy began? Yeah, second woe, sixth trumpet, but what prophecy began? Yeah, no, not 5 months. That's fifth trumpet. 391 years and 15 days. But how is that time expressed in Revelation 9? It doesn't say, and Islam is going to be let loose for 391 years and 15 days. An hour, a day, a month, and a year. So you have 4 expressions of time in this history, which is the number 4. And we're not looking for any time prophecy anymore. So when we're applying this at the end of the world, we're taking these 4 expressions of time and using them to mark this period. Okay? You follow me? So at the beginning of the sixth trumpet, you have this history, 1449 to 1453. And what are we saying about 1453? What happens in 1453? The walls of Constantinople come down, and this is also the midnight cry. This is where the ass crashes Balaam into the wall and cripples Balaam's foot. This is the marriage issue, the first institution that's established in Eden. And Sister White says the marriage is a wall. It's a law of protection for humanity's relationship with humanity. And then the next divine institution, the Sabbath, is a wall. It's a law. It's the protection for God, for the relationship between humanity and man. So we see a wall at this waymark. Persecution coming in this waymark. A prediction that's going to be made in advance. And what's the prediction that Josiah Litch made? Pardon me? It was a prediction about the second woe, and if we want to isolate it down to the answer I'm looking for, it was a prediction about Islam. Okay, so it fits. Pardon me? The Ottoman Empire, okay. So we're looking at a prediction here in 1838 that gets fine-tuned 10 days before its fulfillment in 1840, and it's about Islam. And what we haven't explained to you yet is that this waymark here of July 21st, we've said it, but I won't hold you accountable for understanding this yet. But this waymark here, you understand this line's a waymark, and this line's a waymark, yes? They're the same waymark. Okay, so if Mitch is making a prediction 2 years before this waymark, he's making the prediction about what takes place right here. You follow me? Now, I know you haven't explained, I haven't explained that to you, and I'm not so certain that when I do explain it to you, that I'm going to do it well, because it's kind of a hard concept to internalize and explain. So, tomorrow, I'm going to tell you about how we got led to a plateau of understanding of this, and I'm going to give you a brief overview now. When we started grappling with this, that this here was a period of time and a point in time. Any of you that were watching what was going on in the class in Arkansas, you watched this discussion over several days, and even once we quit discussing it, it would pop back up again occasionally because we couldn't handle it. And I'm pretty sure it was my daughter. She was doing a presentation, perhaps in church, so it wouldn't have been in the class, where I'm sure it was in Sabbath school. As we're trying to understand how how this can be a period of time and point in time, what made sense to her is she put kind of a little roof over it like this, to represent this is touching here and this is touching here. She may even put them together, I don't remember. But some of us began to use this roof, meaning this is the point, but it's these two waymarks. And this doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's not important to your understanding, but I'm going to try to walk you through where we were led in this history. And so this was, even if everyone hadn't accepted this is a valid way to kind of symbolically represent a period of time and point in time, everyone in the class knew what that represented. So keep that in your... but another thing that was being agitated, and the thing that was being agitated had been being agitated probably for 2 years, okay? There's a very nice sister that's in that environment there in Arkansas. She's been instrumental in getting the message into Romania. She's Romanian. She was just with us last week, her and her husband in Romania. Her husband filmed that material. And for the last couple of years, any time that one of us would deal with the mare and Chalzone vision, she would remind us that there's another vision in the scriptures that is not the mare, it's the mara, okay? And a couple of years ago when she first came across this, I looked at it and I realized that based upon what she was seeing, I wasn't agreeing with her complete understanding. I was seeing a different thing. So I started looking at it for myself, but I wasn't convicted that, I'm supposed to take all my time in there. But there came a point as the subject's developing that I did take some time to look at it, and it becomes part of this story too, the Mara vision, and that's where what I want to put in place now. And this is going to be probably pretty incomplete here for this presentation, but what I mean by incomplete, this is probably all I'm going to do with this. I'm recapping where I've been, and I'm getting ready to try to bring what I'm going to share here into a conclusion over the next couple of days. And the next thing I want you to see is the Mara vision. And for years, many years, when it came to Daniel 8, there was a point in time, I've never forced myself to try to memorize Daniel 8, but there was a period of time where I was doing Daniel 8 so often that I had pretty much, at least just pretty well memorized, not because I was trying to memorize it, but just because I was out there teaching it so often on a regular basis. And when I was dealing with Daniel 8, one of the keys for me to share Daniel 8 is to make a distinction between the two words, the two Hebrew words that are translated as vision in Daniel 8. How many have ever heard me do that, one of those presentations of the Chalzon and the Mare vision? Okay, lots of hands went up. That was a period of time in this message where that was being taught on a regular basis, and the definitions that I would give for the Chalzon vision and for the Mare vision were the Jeff Pippinger definitions. They weren't necessarily directly from the Hebrew dictionary, because I was looking at the Hebrew dictionary, but I was going ahead and taking the context where you see these visions and placing a definition upon those words based upon the context. I still do that. So as I begin this study, I want you to know that if you get into your Hebrew, you're not going to see exactly the definition that I'm giving you. But for the Chalzon vision, my definition is it's the vision of prophetic history. And I used to say, how did I used to say it? That it was the complete vision, all right? And then when I compared it to the Mare vision, and I'm going to put here so we start settling into this, the Mare vision is the masculine. In relation to the Mara that we're going to deal with in a moment, okay? I used to say that the Mare was the snapshot vision, because in Daniel 8 you can show that the Mare vision is not simply the vision of the 2300 days, it's actually the vision of October 22nd, 1844, the climax of the 2300 days, when Christ appears in the most holy place. Because the appearance. But when I dealt with these two Hebrew words that are both translated as vision in Daniel chapter 8, I would make an emphasis that the Chalzon was the complete roll of film on a movie picture film. You know how they used to come in big rolls of film? It's all ancient history now. But I would say that this is the complete vision, and that this is just one little snapshot to try to make a distinction with them. I don't do that anymore. My definition has evolved. Mare is the appearance, and that is the Hebrew definition. Most of the time, there's probably many times in the Bible when you will see the word appearance. Did I spell that one right? When it is not the word mare, but I haven't actually found one yet. So when you're reading the Bible and you see the word appearance, many, at least, I'm not prepared to say every time, but many times it's the word mare that is translated as appearance. But what I'm dealing with is in Daniel 8, it gets translated as appearance in Daniel 8 in one place, but it gets translated as vision. You with me so far? Okay, but the sister, whenever we would deal with this presentation, she would interject, well, you know, the feminine of this is Mara, and then she'd start asking questions. What does it mean here and here where the Mara vision occurs? And I would always put her off, because I would always have my own agenda when I was sharing something. I mean, if someone right now wants to try to force me into talking about feast days, I'm going to put you off too. I wasn't putting her off in a negative way. I'd just hear what she had to say and move on, okay? The Mara vision is the mirror. Or if you want, the looking glass. And we'll go through this now. We'll put this in place. And this is the man, this is the woman, this is the masculine, this is the feminine. Both these words are translated as vision. But what we're understanding is this mare, the appearance of Christ. When a prophet is supernaturally brought into the presence of Christ in the most holy place, or in the sanctuary, and Christ appears to him, this is the cause. And what it does to that prophet is it causes an effect. And the effect is the Mara. If you respond correctly, okay, you can be brought into the place where Christ's glory is presented to you, and you can run from it and be lost, or you can be in a position where you receive it correctly and are saved. I guess I can say it that way. But in either case, the appearance of Christ produces an effect upon the one that sees the appearance. Everyone follow that logic? Okay, so we're going to find that this binding off period, the third angel, this number 4, is the Mara, vision. Okay? This is where the effect is accomplished upon those that are symbolized by the prophets in the scriptures. And the effect is, what it does, it prepares that prophet in this history to do a work of presenting a message in this history. Now, one other line I forgot to bring in is what I was referring you to in the last presentation, is I'm saying that the prophet that is prepared in this history by seeing Christ's appearance and having the correct response, the Mara experience for himself, that this person or people have been represented by the angel with the writer's inkhorn in Ezekiel 9. And that's why in the last presentation I took the time to go through the various symbolic representations of the angels and the messages in the books of Revelation. You follow? The angels aren't angels, are they? They're representing what? Pardon me? I know why Mark said earlier when he asked a question, and he says it's like Babylon. It's not, it's this room. This room's got very good acoustics, I guess what it is. Usually when you ask this group, you can hear the distinctively different answers, but in this room it kind of just, from up front, it's hard to, I guess I'll just quit asking questions, because you may or may not be giving the right answer, but I can't tell what answer you're giving. What was my question? What does the angel represent? Okay, the angel represents Christ, right? The angel represents the message. And the Protestants in the Millerite history, they crucified the message. The message is Christ. The angel is Christ, but the angel also represents what? God's people and the work that they do in presenting that message. So when we see the angel with the inkhorn in Ezekiel 9, what is he doing? He's putting a mark upon what? The forehead of those that sigh and cry. And we read a quote where Sister White said the sealing in Ezekiel 9 is the same as the sealing in Revelation 7. So this angel with the writer's inkhorn in Ezekiel 9 is the sealing angel. And we've read a quote where Sister White says the sealing angel is the one that binds and numbers those people. But I'm saying that this angel, although it is Christ, and although it is represented as an angel in the scripture, it is God's people that are prepared in this binding off, sealing, numbering history to take a message through the next period. And in reality, it's the message that either puts a mark on their forehead or marks them to be destroyed, okay? You follow the logic? So The work of the priest at the midnight cry is represented by the angel with the writer's inkhorn that is going to go through the history of the Levites with a message and put a mark upon those that understand the message and are responding accordingly. So what prepares you and empowers you and me, if we're faithful, to do that work is what goes on in this history. And I'm saying what goes on in this history is represented by the Mara vision. And the Mara vision is the effect of seeing Christ, the appearance of Christ. Okay? So what's going to happen to you when you reach this binding off period? If you're faithful, you're going to have a personal confrontation with Jesus Christ, and you're going to see His glory in its full manifestation, and you're going to be humbled into the dust. You're going to be slain in the Spirit. Amen. Okay? Right? What's the justification for doing that is you've seen one justification in Revelation 11, a justification for saying slain in the Spirit. But when we get to Daniel 10:7 and onward, you're going to see that Daniel, from how I understand it, he's slain. He is not breathing. Okay, so that's the overview of this. I want to walk through the Mara vision with you in the Scriptures so you can see the reason that I'm calling it the looking glass, and we can wrap our minds around this. In your notes, I've told you that Daniel has the Mara vision in chapter 10, and previous presentations I've started there. I'm not going to start there. I'm going to come back to that tomorrow. I'm just going to start with the word study, proof texting on Mara vision. So if you would turn to, I'm on page 21 of your notes, and I'm going to look at the looking glass, and we'll look at the first place where Mara occurs in the Scriptures. And this is the justification for calling it the mirror or the looking glass. Exodus 38, verse 8. Everyone there? Exodus 38, 8. And if you want, you can follow your notes on page 21, looking glass. Okay, Exodus 38, 8 says, "And he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, of the looking glasses of the woman assembling, which assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation." So when they came out of Egypt, the Hebrew women, they had mirrors, looking glasses, that were made out of brass that they brought with them, that they donated to the raising up of the sanctuary, that were taken and beaten into the laver. Okay? And this word in here that is looking glasses is the Mara, feminine of Mare. It's the Mara vision. Okay, this is the first reference of it in the Scriptures. Pardon me? Second? Okay, Genesis. Thank you for correcting me. We'll get to the first reference in Genesis 46. And that will prepare some of the way for what you're going to do. But you said you were going to do Dan to Beersheba. So it'll connect there too. Both Patrick and Lawrence are going to deal with the Mara in terms of a symbol of the history of the midnight cry to the Sunday law. Brother Patrick's going to do, but Brother Lawrence is going to show you the joining of the two sticks in the story of Pharaoh and Joseph, the first time the two sticks are joined. The two sticks being the two sticks of Ezekiel 37 that are joined in our history when Adventism is joined with the 11th hour workers. And there is a connection with the Mara vision there as well. So this is where the mirror from, because that's what it was. So let's understand what the mirror is all about. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 13, and of course, this now is, this isn't the word Mara in the Greek. The New Testament is not using the Greek word Mara, but the New Testament is going to deal with the looking glass, and we'll walk through and see what the commentary on the looking glass is in the New Testament before we return to the Hebrew Mara and the rest of the scriptures. 1 Corinthians 13, 9 through 13. Everyone there? For we know in part and we prophesy in part. That's where we are now. Okay, we're standing before you, at least I am. I don't know that these other brothers are doing it. And what I'm saying is we have a lot of information about what the prediction's going to be. But there's still a couple of pieces of the puzzle that have to be brought into place by the line of the tribe of Judah that actually allows us to formulate some kind of prediction that causes a shaking, so to speak, that really brings ridicule upon us, but therefore really brings a response of fear upon those people when they see the prediction come true. We're not at that. We understand the prediction will have to do with the beginning of the image of the beast test in the United States and the beginning of the midnight cry, and that there will be a law passed in the United States. We understand that upon several witnesses. And we understand that it will have to do with Islam striking the United States and causing a more severe situation by far than what 9/11 did. We know that much, but that doesn't seem to be the prediction. Okay, prediction, if you tell someone in the United States, hey, Islam's going to strike the United States again, they're going to go, yeah. Someone told me today, yeah, all you have to do to hear that prediction is turn on Fox News. Okay. Everyone can see Islam's ready to strike the United States. So that's really not the kind of prediction that is going to bring this movement into the focus of the public attention. Okay, there's still some more pieces to put into the puzzle. So now we see in part. Okay, yes, it's not perfected. That was verse 9. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. We read a passage here today that when the third angel accomplishes his work, there is no more probationary time, and that our character is set for eternity. So when you and I reach this binding off period, we're set for eternity, and we are set either as imperfect or perfect. Okay? There's a point when perfection arrives. Before perfection arrives, we're seeing in part, but when we get here, I'm claiming there's going to be perfect clarity. Okay, verse 11. And Paul's going to repeat this. He's going to give another example. He's going to say the imperfection is represented by a child, but the perfection is represented by being a man. Okay, there's a change of maturity. Verse 11, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. So as a child, when we're seeing imperfectly, we're seeing darkly, but when we become a man and we're seeing perfectly, what are we going to do? Face to face. Who are we going to see face to face? The appearance of Christ. Okay. But then face to face, now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also as I'm. But then shall I know even as also I am known. Okay, so I'm saying that this is the experience of perfection, if you're going to use the word here from 1 Corinthians 13. And this glass, I'm saying, represents the Mara vision, the looking glass. But go to 2 Corinthians 3, 2 Corinthians 3:18. But back up to verse 15. But even unto this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. Okay, what's Paul referencing there? That when Christ came down off the mountain, he was glowing with the glory of God so much. Did I say Christ? Moses, okay. It says Moses, all right. That he was glowing with the glory of God, and the Hebrews didn't want to look upon him, so he put a veil over him. But Paul's saying that veil that was diminishing the glory of God that was shining out from Moses, it still existed among the Hebrews of his day and age, because there was a veil over their understanding of God's Word. And God's Word is His glory. Okay, so verse 15, but even unto this day when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit is, there is liberty. But we all, with open face, behold as in a glass the glory of the Lord. Here is the glory of the Lord, the appearance. We behold it in a glass, in the Mara vision, the looking glass, and are changed into the same glory. Is that perfection if you're changed into the glory of the Lord? We're changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. So there's something that takes place in this looking glass experience from the cause and effect that changes us into the image of Christ, into His glory. You see that, if it's seeable? Go to James 1, verse 22 to 25. James 1, verse 22. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. You're looking in a mirror. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. That's one class. But whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty, now the looking glass is being defined as the perfect law of liberty, the God's law. But whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Okay, so that's the looking glass in the New Testament. Now let's go to Numbers 12:6. We have not yet went to Genesis 46. Maybe I don't have it in these notes. So let's go to, we can go there. I know where it's at anyway. I just don't see it in the notes. Let's go to Numbers 12, verse 6. Here's where it begins to get interesting, if it's not interesting for you. At least it does for me. Now, I have a brother in here named Robert, and I know for certain that this is the first time that he's been in one of these meetings where I was at. And so I'm going to give Brother Robert a little word in due season, but it's for all of us. It's when I see one person fall asleep, it's okay. Well, when I see the second person fall asleep, then I say something. Okay, so I already seen someone on the front side, the front row, and I won't say that it was on my left side, getting close to that, but now I see Brother Robert, so I'm putting it into the record. to stay awake, okay? Or I might say something to you and then the peer pressure will make you feel funny, and I don't want to make you feel funny. Numbers 12, verse 6. And he said, hear now my words, if there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak to him in a dream. So when the Lord is going to reveal a prophet, how does he reveal himself to the prophet? In a vision, and this vision is the Mara vision. Okay, so I'm not going to argue as A.T. Jones did once, and then Sister White corrected him. I'm not going to argue that all of the 144,000 have the gift of the spirit of prophecy. A.T. Jones was at least inferring that once, and Sister White responded to him. But I do know that right here, I'm certain the gift of the spirit of prophecy is restored, and I'm certain of those people, the priests that are anointed here, even if they do not receive the full-fledged gift of the spirit of prophecy, they are prophetically prophets in this history. Because this crisis that hits when Islam strikes the United States again, and the crisis that hits when Islam strikes the United States at the Sunday law, one of the things that happens to the people that are shocked by this going on is they're going to recognize, in the words of the scriptures, that a prophet has been among them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be understood that it means a prophet that possesses the gift of the spirit of prophecy. It means that there is an anointed messenger or messengers that have the clarity of what's taking place in that particular history. And that's what's getting established in this history with the priests. They're being anointed as prophets at that level, as messengers. But also, right here, this spirit of prophecy does get restored. Okay, and we're going to deal with that in this presentation. We'll give you the argument for that. And then Mark, no doubt, will deal with it a little bit later. But when the Lord chooses someone to have the full-fledged gift of the spirit of prophecy, he appears to them, and this is the effect, the Mara vision, upon that person who's receiving the gift of prophecy. Everyone follow that? It's the Mara vision, not the Chalzone or the Mare, that selects the prophets. Okay, 1 Samuel 3:15. Mark usually deals with this. I don't know that he intends to. Before you go to verse 15, go to verse 1. This is the story of the establishment of the spirit of prophecy at the end of the world. Because all the prophets are speaking about the end of the world, and you know the spirit of prophecy has not been a gift for this church since 1915, and therefore verse 1 of 1 Samuel chapter 3 says this: And the child Samuel ministered the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. This is Chalzone vision. Okay, the gift of prophecy was not active. Why isn't the gift of prophecy alive and active in Adventism today? Because of the condition of the church. Sister White says so. She doesn't say it like that. She says when the church is pure, every gift will be alive and well. That's my words, but that's what she teaches. And since 1915, the spirit of prophecy has not been alive and well. It's teaching that this church is in apostasy. And this is the history of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas, which is a symbol of the apostasy that was going on at that time period, that was typifying the apostasy that leads to the Sunday law in our history. And in that time, as they're approaching the death of Eli and Hophni and Phinehas, in other words, before they get to the Sunday law, the apostasy has silenced the spirit of prophecy, and now the Lord is going to, in the story of Samuel, reestablish the spirit of prophecy. Okay, so I have it for, this is only for the brethren from the United Kingdom, excluding Parminder and Mark. You guys can't answer. But how old was Samuel in this story? Pardon me? 12. Who said 12? Good for you. He's 12 years old. Okay, maybe that'll mean something to you as we proceed. So you know the story, right? The Lord calls Samuel. Samuel wakes up. Well, let me read on in verse 2. And it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place, his eyes began to wax dim that he could not see. What's that mean? He's a certified Laodicean. And he's approaching the Sunday law where he's the symbol of the leadership. They can't see. What can't they see? The prophetic message. There's no open vision. They're approaching the Sunday law, and at the Sunday law, who's the symbol of the leadership at the Sunday law? Zedekiah. And Zedekiah is going to watch his children get executed, and then his eyes are going to be put out. But here, Eli, before the Sunday law, his sight's almost where he can't see, and it's showing a progressive blindness that is coming upon the leadership of God's church as they get closer and closer to the Sunday law, and there's no evidence that they ever turn back. Okay, so Eli is a certified Laodicean. He can't see. And in verse 3 it says, ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. What's it mean that the lamp went out? What's it mean that the Lord says, I will remove thy candlestick? Okay. Pardon me? The church is being passed by. Okay, this is a story about the passing by of the Seventh-day Adventist church. Okay. Go to verse, so the Lord calls Samuel. How many times does he call Samuel? Wrong. Try again. 4 times. But it's actually a 3-1 combination, isn't it? He calls him, and Samuel goes into Eli 3 times and said, you called me? And Eli says, no, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. But the 3rd time, Eli realizes it was the Lord calling him. He says, go back to bed. If he calls you again, you respond to the Lord, not me. And the 4th time he goes in and he responds to the Lord. And the Lord does something for him, gives him a message about the destruction of the Seventh-day Adventist church. Let's take it up in verse 10. Okay, this is where Eli has instructed him. Let's go to verse 9 so you can see Eli instructing him. After he comes and awakes Eli 3 times, thinking Eli called him. In verse 9 it says, therefore Eli said unto Samuel, go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place, and the Lord came and stood and called as at the other times. What did he say, Samuel? He said, Samuel, Samuel. Okay. Doubled up therefore. Then Samuel answered, speak, for thy servant heareth. And the Lord said to Samuel, behold, I will do a thing in Israel at which both the ears of everyone that heareth it shall tingle. There's only 3 places in the scriptures where the ears tingle, and they all have to do about the structure of the Seventh-day Adventist church being swept away at the Sunday law. Okay. They all have to do about the leadership being swept away at the Sunday law. But for Samuel, he gets this vision from the Lord, and he realizes that the Lord just said that his boss, Eli, and his boss's 2 wicked sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they're about to be swept away and destroyed by the Lord. So if you're 12 years old, and you're working for an old man that is the leader of the entire nation, you're not really want to go tell him as a 12-year-old, hey, the Lord just told me you and your sons are about to die, right? This isn't a vision that you want to tell to Eli, correct? So, in verse 12 it says, "And that day," this is the vision that is given to Samuel, "in that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice nor offering forever." So here's the bottom line of the message that's given to Samuel. And then in verse 15 it says, "And Samuel lay until the morning and opened the doors of the house of the Lord, and Samuel feared to show Eli the vision." You see why he's fearing to show him the vision, but what vision is it that he saw? The Mara vision. Okay, but in Numbers it says if the Lord's going to raise up a prophet, what's he going to give him? The Mara vision. So where is it that Samuel is being anointed as a prophet? Is it at the Sunday law or before the Sunday law? It's before the Sunday law, because it's still future when Eli and Hophni and Phinehas are going to die on the very day that the ark is captured by the Philistines, which is a symbol of the Sunday law. Okay, so if this raising up of Samuel as a prophet here in verse 15 is taking place before the Sunday law, then by the context of this chapter, where is it? It's at the midnight cry. Why? That doubling. Samuel, Samuel. So you tell me, where's the spirit of prophecy restored? At the midnight cry. Okay, this is where it comes back into history. It's restored among the priests. Okay, and Samuel was a priest, a ruler, and a prophet. Is that what it is? A judge. A judge, a prophet, and a priest, Sister White says. Okay, he's a priest because he's the history of 9/11 to the midnight cry. He's a prophet because the spirit of prophecy is going to get restored right here. And he's a judge. Why is he a judge? Because the message that he's going to carry through this history with the inkhorn in his hand is going to bring judgment upon the wise and foolish Levites from the midnight cry to the Sunday law. Okay, that's why Sister White says he is a judge, a priest, and a prophet. Okay, so go to Genesis 46. Now, Brother Lawrence is going to lay this out for you. Genesis 46 is part of, 7 chapters there that he's going to deal with. 40 to 40. Do you do 47? So I don't know what kind of detail he's going to get into. But you all know about the joining of the two sticks in Ezekiel 37. In Ezekiel 37, how many waymarks are there? Okay, I heard 7, I heard 3, and I heard 4. And 5. Okay, we're not going to deal with 5 and 7. We'll just show with the raise of hand. Is it there are 3 waymarks in Ezekiel 37 or 4? 3? 4. Okay, there's 4. What's the first waymark? It's the message of Daniel 11:40 to 45 that causes a shaking and a noise that brings the bones and the flesh and the sinew together. Okay? And that message of Daniel 11:40 to 45 that brings the bones and the sinew and the muscles together, the noise is David playing the harp, and the shaking that it causes is Saul trying to kill David. And that's the history of 1989 to 9/11. And then the second waymark in that history is the message of the east wind that causes God's people to stand up a mighty army. Yes? That's in verses 9-11. And then in verse 12, what happens? A resurrection. And when it says in there, when they're resurrected, then they will know that I am the Lord their God. Some expression like that. And where's the resurrection take place? At the midnight cry, right here. Okay. You all with me? So in Ezekiel 37, the first message is 1989 to 9/11. The second message is from 9/11 to the midnight cry. And the third message is the resurrection at the midnight cry. Why does there have to be a resurrection at the midnight cry? Don't tell me just because that's where Lazarus is resurrected, but why does there have to be a resurrection? Because this history here is identifying a death. Right? Being slain in the Lord. They're going to get resurrected right here. And then, what's the fourth waymark in Ezekiel 37? Ezekiel's told to stand before God's people and take a stick for the northern kingdom and a stick for the southern kingdom and join them together into one stick. And when the people ask you what you mean by this, you are to tell them the story of the 25-20 against the northern kingdom and the 25-20 against the southern kingdom, and how both of those kingdoms were scattered. But at the end of the world, the Lord is going to take these two kingdoms and bring them into one nation. Okay, that is part of the public record of this message. But recently we have realized that the first place that the two sticks being joined together is illustrated is in Genesis 46. Well, 45, 46. And if you remember, in fulfillment of the covenant prophecy, Joseph gets taken down into Egypt. I can't believe I'm not further along in this message. And the famine hits, right? So Joseph's in Egypt, and 10 of his brothers come into Egypt to get some food. All right? How many times are 10 brothers going to come into Egypt? Twice, because he's going to keep one of the brothers, Simeon, and say, you go back to your dad, and if you won't bring Benjamin back with you again, don't come back. And after they run out of their first supply of food, they decide they're going to go back down into Egypt again with 10. And this is where Joseph explains the story to him. And so they go back to Jacob, and they tell Jacob the whole story about the deception. And Jacob decides to go down into Egypt for the famine. But before he goes there, he goes to Beersheba. And my brother Patrick is going to explain to you how Beersheba means well of the oath. It means the well of the 7 times. It's a symbol of the covenant. And Beersheba, you can trace through the scriptures, is a symbol of both the covenant and the 25-20. But he's going to tell you why it becomes a symbol of the history of the midnight cry to the Sunday law when Beersheba is associated with the word Dan. Dan and Beersheba is a symbol of where the two sticks get joined together from the midnight cry to the Sunday law at the end of the world. And in the story of Joseph, when his 10 brothers, which is the northern kingdom, are going down into Egypt to meet with Joseph, this is the first illustration of the joining of the two sticks. So Joseph agrees to go into Egypt. But before he does, before he leaves where he lives, and before he gets to Egypt, he stops in Beersheba. And in Genesis 46, we find him first going to Beersheba. And in verse 1 it says, and Israel took his journey with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night. What kind of visions does he speak to Joseph with? The Mara vision, okay? He's going down into Egypt, where the two sticks are going to be joined together in the story. And it says, where was I? I read halfway through verse 2. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, what? Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. And he said, and please note he said, here am I. What did Samuel say? I mean, what did Isaiah say? Okay, never mind. Let's just read on. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And what I'm saying is, this history from 9/11 over here to the midnight cry, it's represented by the 120. Okay, from the first day of the first month to the last day of the fourth month, 120 days. The history from the midnight cry, from the first day of the fifth month to the 10th day of the seventh month, is represented by what? 70. Okay? So in this history from the midnight cry to the Sunday law, this is where the two sticks are being joined. This is the story that's being illustrated here. But they get joined from the 11th hour workers begin to get awakened to these circumstances when the United States is virtually crippled with an attack by Islam at the midnight cry. And the 11th hour workers begin to realize, hey, there was some people that were presenting a message on the internet back over here that said this very thing is going to happen. And they start waking up to this. And these people that were saying that it's going to happen said that it will mark the beginning of an escalating crisis in the United States, where the United States is going to force everyone to worship on Sunday. They said that, and they begin to look at this. This is the 11th hour workers. This is the Gentiles. And it prepares them that when the Sunday law hits over here, they've understood the issues, and they can make the right choice and stand for the seventh-day Sabbath instead of the first day of the week, okay? This is from Dan to Beersheba. This is what's going on in this history. And this history is associated, symbolized by the number 70. And although, this is the hard part if you're new at this, although the doubling is at the midnight cry 9 out of 10 times, at 9/11 there was a doubling, because this is where the second angel arrived. Babylon is fallen, okay? But at the Sunday law, there is a doubling too. It's a bigger factor, but at the Sunday law, there's a doubling too, because in Revelation 18:4, Sister White tells us that this is the Sunday law, come out of her, my people. And from verses 4 to 6, it says that the United States has filled up the cup of its iniquity at that point, come out of Babylon. And now he's going to begin to judge Babylon. And what kind of judgment does he give? Double unto her. Okay, her judgment is doubled. So at the Sunday law, there's a doubling. And I like to understand, I believe, that this Jacob is marking Jacob back here at the Sunday law. Because he's in this history, from the midnight cry and the Sunday law, where the two sticks are being joined together. And why do I say that he's in this history? Read verse 27. And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls, and all the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70. Okay, so the Mara vision is being marked here at the leading into the midnight cry, and it's being marked here leading in to the Sunday law. Okay, so I'm out of time. And I will close. But can I share one more thing? I'm 7 minutes over, but we don't have any more meetings tonight, right? Okay, is this a problem for you, my cameraman brother? Yeah. How many have a problem if I take 5 more minutes just to put one more thing in place? Don't be afraid. I'm from the United States. It's a democracy now. It used to be a republic, now it's a democracy. Majority rules. Okay. Nobody's raising your hands.
What's it going on? Keep going. Keep going.
No, you haven't got questions and answers today. That's not what I understood. But anyway, I'll keep going. I just want to put one more thing in place. Okay, one more thing, all right? Go to Ezekiel chapter 8. Now, to wrap your mind around Ezekiel chapter 8 is beyond what I intend to do here. Okay? I don't understand it fully, so I can't wrap my mind around it. But what I mean by that is what I do understand about it. I'm not going to share everything I understand. I'm going to make one point and then we'll close. All right? In Ezekiel chapter 8, which we have been referring to, at least I've been referring to, the image of jealousy, the secret chambers, the weeping for Tammuz, the the bowing down to the sun, the 4 generational tests for Adventism, okay? These 4 abominations take place in Ezekiel chapter 8, and in verse 4, it says, "And behold, the glory of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain." And the glory of the Lord here, this vision here, is the Mare vision. I believe. It's either the Mare or the Chalzone. But this vision is according to the vision he saw in the plain. You see that? So it's connecting this vision of Ezekiel 8 with another vision, a vision that he saw in the plain. What's the vision that he saw in the plain? Go backwards to Ezekiel 3, verse 22 and 23. And it says, "The hand of the Lord was there upon me." And please take note that the hand of the Lord is upon Ezekiel there, because tomorrow we're going to see Daniel get touched 3 times. Okay. "And the hand of the Lord was there upon me, and he said, Arise, go forth into the plain, and I will there talk with thee." So this is the vision of the plain that is connected by Ezekiel with the vision of Ezekiel 8. And verse 23 says, "Then I arose and went forth into the plain, and behold, the glory of the Lord stood there as the glory which I saw by the river Chebar, and I fell on my face." So the vision of Ezekiel 8 is connected with the vision of the plain in Ezekiel 3, but the vision of the plain in Ezekiel 3 is connected with the vision of the Chebar River. You see that? So go to Ezekiel 1:1. "Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened unto me, and I saw the Mara vision of God." You see that? Okay. Ezekiel's vision of Ezekiel 8 is an extension of the vision of the plains, and the vision of the plains is the vision of the Chebar River, and the vision of the Chebar River is the Mara vision. When did Ezekiel get the vision of the Mara at the Chebar vision according to verse 1? The 5th day of the 4th month. Now, there's several brothers in here that are really sharp. That are really sharp on the Karaite reckoning in the Gregorian time, and I don't do well with those. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Brother Parminder. In the history of the Millerites, from April 19th, 1844 to October 22nd, 1844, what is the 5th day of the 4th month in the Millerite history?
July the 21st.
Right here. July 21st, the Mara vision is given to Ezekiel. Okay, now this matters because this is the vision that was given to Samuel, and this is the first reference of Ezekiel. He's being called as a prophet just as Samuel was. And this matters because we're going to see Daniel in Daniel 10 tomorrow receive the Mara vision, and he's going to get touched 3 times in here, and then it's going to say, be strong, Daniel, double it up, because he's got to give a message, all right? And Sister White has several passages where she says the visions of Isaiah, Ezekiel, John, and Daniel are the same vision, okay? So the Mara vision is the mirror. It's the effect of the cause. And it's associated with the binding off period, which is the 3rd angel. And brothers and sisters, the 3rd angel is what was typified by the message of Samuel Snow. The midnight cry message was the message of the 3rd angel, and it's typifying a prophetic truth at the end of the world that is the message of the 3rd angel, and the message of the 3rd angel is this binding off period. Therefore, the truths connected with this are the midnight cry message for the end of the world. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, we understand that from 9/11 to the midnight cry, that the number 12 is illustrated in the 12 disciples. And we understand that when Samuel was 12 years old, he received this vision that we're dealing with in this binding off period, the same vision that every prophet has when they're called to be a prophet. But we know in the history of 9/11 to the midnight cry that you're accomplishing the everlasting gospel, and during the first two tests, from 9/11 up until July 21st, that my brothers and sisters here and myself, we have some decisions to make, that we accept both steps in this process, that we might be prepared to enter into this binding off period and be among those that have been represented by these prophets that are slain in the Spirit and then raised up as your messengers for the following period of time. We want that to happen in our lives. We need that to happen in our lives, but we know that we're not ready. We ask that you take this prophetic message and not only fill our minds so that we're settled intellectually into the truth, but we want you to fill our hearts with this message where we're fully settled into the truth, both spiritually and intellectually, that we can enter into that binding off period and receive your seal, and that we might be tools in your hands to give a warning message to both the heathen that will get awakened in this time period and to the Levites that will also go through a preparation process that leads them to a binding off period. We thank you that we are among the very few on planet Earth that are recognizing this wonderful truth that you, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, are opening. We ask that you continue to open it throughout this week and help us all chew and digest this message, that it might have the effect that you intend for each of us as individuals. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.